We are connecting. Okay, I actually believe we're going live here. So, good afternoon, everybody. Real Martian here, and I am joined with my good friend Bart Womack, and we're going to be talking to you today. We got some cool stuff to share with you. So, we want to kind of start doing some more live streams as we go here. We're hoping to be able to do these, what, Bart, once a week, we're hoping, maybe
Yeah,
once
I'm
every 2
thinking,
weeks.
I think what we talked about is we'll probably do them every Friday, a little bit earlier in the day. You know, we were getting the tower set up and impregnated with the new plants and getting it going because we wanted to be able to show it off to everybody. But I think we'll probably start doing these every Friday around 1 o'clock is what we talked about.
Yeah. So obviously we'll be doing this. We're working through some details here. This is actually the first time we've done this. So I've got Bart streaming in on one side, and we're streaming both of us back out to YouTube. And the only way that's even possible is because of Starlink. So thank you, Elon, and thanks for being part of the early adopter program. I'm glad we're able to do that. But if the video is choppy or the audio is choppy, let us know in the comments, and we'll get better at it as we go. So.
And be sure to start joining us because we're not just going to be talking about the company. We're going to be talking about the future of food and what kind of movements we need to be creating, not just with Eden, but all over the country and all over the world to meet a lot of the coming challenges that we're going to be discussing today.
Absolutely. So let's see here. We're going to start off with an update from last week. So obviously, Bart, you have something there behind you over your right shoulder there. You want to tell folks what you got there?
Well, for sure. This is the latest version of our grow towers that I've been eagerly waiting to get down here so that we could start showing it off to some of our potential investors and some of our potential buyers. As you can see, we're moving more towards the sleek kind of black format. We've made it a lot more efficient to be shipped now. That was really exciting, able to cut down on costs of our shipping costs and material costs, making it more affordable for our users. So I'm really excited to test this one out. This will be the third generation of towers I've gotten and been able to test. So I'm pretty excited to see what we're going to do with this bad boy.
Yeah, I was excited to get it all done. So obviously, what I've been working on for the last week or so has been getting that tower all built and testing it all out, letting it run for quite a while, and then getting it all boxed up and shipped to Bart. And it was cool because we went from 7 boxes originally down to 2. And we shaved $350 off of the shipping cost because we went with the new flexible tanks. And lots of learning that went into that, lots of how to weld fabric and get everything all put together right and box it all up. And we keep learning. This is definitely a really big learning exercise that we're going through. So it's cool to actually see it down there, see it running, and how much quieter it is. The very first one is, when that stainless steel and that pump was on there, and it would go do that for like a minute or two, and vibrate on that metal. And now it's all plastic and it's quiet. It's got rubber dampeners on it. It's a better pump. We got our pump run times correct. It's cool seeing all those things starting to mature. I think we're really, really close. I actually think this one that you have is one that we could potentially send out to customers and get going with it. There's a few things that we'd like to change on it to make it even better that aren't major putts, that aren't huge changes. But we'll share those with everybody as we get going.
Well, I mean, one of the points I always make is, Jeff, and that I obviously push in our conversations is, you and I have no professional background in growing. And we've been using these towers now for about 18 months, I'd say, growing successfully out of them. And working with Texas A&M and now in the early adopter program, being able to have, other people working with us. Every time we plug it in, we figure out something new. We discover something new that just makes the tower that much better. So, what's fascinating to me in this whole design process is knowing, that the tower's always going to be improving. because we're always going to be adding new features to it to make it more efficient, make it easier. Some of the things that we were even discussing today are new ways that we can put the tower together to cut down on the build time so that it'll be easier for people to set it up. So, we're always going to be figuring that out, but it is exciting being a part of the process. And again, I'm excited about what we're going to see with the Feed the Future program. And really, so far it's been people we've known, a couple of outsiders, but as we grow that footprint and move out into the world and more people begin to adopt our systems, I think it's going to be really fascinating, because that brain trust of getting so many more eyes, getting so many more, inputs, because there's things you and I think of, but just like today, there were things that, were thought of that we had never considered before, but definitely could be a quantum leap forward in making the tower a better product. So, it is exciting.
Yeah, it is. And as we get more and more eyes on the system, it'll keep getting better and better. So I think, it's just started. Um I, I shot it out to our whole team, but the lean startup, and it's just so reassuring. I read that book, I don't know, it was like 4 years ago, when I was first getting into agile product development, and it's just such a reassuring thing. The guy in it, uh, he's done like 10 startups or something like that, and you know, people always think that when you're in a startup, you're just loose and free, but he's like, no, you actually, there's a management style, there's a management philosophy, and there's an approach called minimum viable product, where you got to get the product out to the customers. Constantly playing with it yourselves is one thing, but you've got to get it out to customers. And we've been pushing that here at Eden, and what everyone is seeing here on the live stream is the third iteration, where there was actually some things that we need to really take care of, like there are some electrical things that we needed to make sure for be safe. Minimum viable product has to be safe, and we've taken care of all those things. But the experience that we're getting is awesome. So it's cool seeing it come together. We got a lot more to share. Alicia's actually been editing videos as another part of our update, so she's been getting really good at that. In fact, I think she's getting, or has already gotten, better than I was at, and she really likes doing it. So we got some new videos coming for you guys of the build of version 2.2, which is behind Bart there. We're excited to share those things and give you kind of some of the sausage making that happens behind the scenes. And then we're actually going through design updates right now, because we've hired people. We've got, what is it? There's 7 of us now at Eden instead of just 2 of us. So we've really come a long ways from where we used to be to where we are now. So I get to go through the process of all the legal maturations to make sure all the paperwork's in place. So that's kind of sucking my soul, but it's a good thing to go through those things. So that's pretty much the update, I would say, kind of since last time we spoke, and then where we're at right now. I know we'll get a lot more succinct when we go through this, and it's more of a weekly basis. But what do you say we move into this week's topic?
Sure, let's go.
Yeah, so I think this week's topic is going to be why did we get started in this? So people understand where you're coming from and where I'm coming from. So you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, as always, the funny story is the first time we met was actually we were both giving a presentation at Farmers in Space out in LA, a panel, and you got up and gave my entire presentation, like everything that I was gonna talk about. That was actually the genesis of how we first got on the road together, because I was like, man, this guy's smart. He thinks everything I think. But truthfully, that data understanding, and it's important to talk about this. It's like, essentially, I think the first data point that really got you and I both interested in this was the idea that traditional farming, there wasn't enough land left on the planet in the next 50 years for humanity to keep up with um, the amount of land needed to supply using traditional growing methods. And that was really where the journey began for me. But the further and deeper I dug into learning about the way that our food production system works, uh, that was really when I started to get concerned about the future, because essentially what I discovered was that the over optimization of this system is inherently dangerous, and the problem is there's no breaks, there's no way to readjust. The system has been designed for peak performance and will perform that way like a race car, but it doesn't matter if it runs out of road. And that's kind of the inherent flaw in the system, is that the road are the resources and the resource management. So, the deeper we dug, what we saw was that humanity and the food production system was essentially driving towards this cliff at maximum speed, and eventually was just going to fly right off the cliff without being able to ever adjust, because again, that was the nature of it, was to continually move forward at peak performance over optimization. And so that's kind of where we find ourselves today, is unfortunately a lot of the systemic problems that you and I were talking about in 2017 and had identified as far back as 2014, 2012, of the coming, breakdown in the supply chain because of that over optimization, because of its inability to be flexible in stress situations. So essentially, the whole world supply system, which civilization itself is built on. I mean, and that's a whole other fact, is the fact is civilization comes from the economy of scale being created by people being able to mass produce food. That's what gives people the luxury time to have religion, museums, because instead of being solely focused on their survival, they're able to start creating society itself. And so this system that's been being built for the last 11,000 years now has reached that crisis point that we identified, which was that when you have a breakdown in the system, when you have disruptions in the system, because it has been so over optimized to get resources from so many varying points, it's like a giant machine. Imagine a giant clock where all of the cogs, no matter how big or how small, they're all interconnected, and disruption, the breakdown of one cog in one part, can lead to the entire machine beginning to fall apart and malfunction. And so that's what we're dealing with today. And again, um, this isn't catastrophism. This isn't hyperbole. And one of the pushbacks I get on this is, oh, Bart, going all the way back to Malthus, people were talking about this, that there wouldn't be enough resources to take care of burgeoning populations. And that's fundamentally true. The same thing can be said of oil prices in the US at the turn of the millennium. What happens is when society and civilization and human beings encounter systemic problems like this, it takes a certain threshold of the problem to become a problem before humans will mobilize resources and innovation to deal with the problem. So again, a good example is the oil industry. When oil became expensive enough for people to be able to profit, human innovation enters the marketplace and all of a sudden begins to deploy new technologies, and it becomes valuable enough for the people to do that, and innovation then heads off the disaster. So that's what we're trying to do here at Eden. We saw a problem in the future. We saw that food and food security was going to be a problem, as well as people's desire to live in a healthier world would only continue to grow. And so we found the best technology separately. Jeff and I both saw the same problem, and we both went after the same solution, which was taking these next generation farming technologies, making them easy to use, making them turnkey, so that people out there that had regular jobs, regular lives, that don't have the resources or time or energy to take back that power, we could give them that solution. And that's been our journey continually along the way.
Yeah. We definitely kind of came to it from two different angles, didn't we?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we were trying to build the ultimate terrestrial system, and you were trying to build the ultimate off-world system, but it's the exact same problem. How do you create a food production system and survival system that uses the least amount of human and electrical energy and is at the end of the supply chain?
Well, for me, I got these articles kind of pulled up just to quickly go through them a little bit, but going way back, I mean, my story, like I shared, what was it? It was, geez, like I've been doing this now for almost 15 years, I think, as far as the whole journey goes. So it's not like it's, something we just started doing a few days ago and oh my goodness, we're here and we're going to do a startup now. Like this has been a really long haul for us. And I started just doing research and looking at off-grid stuff and wanting to live more off-grid, and that led to more research, and then that led to kind of discovering some things, one of which is the idea of food deserts and food security and people's access to food. There's so much food on the planet, which is what I hear people say a lot. The problem ends up being kind of logistics, like getting the food from where it's grown to where it needs to be. That's a big challenge, and COVID really exposed our logistics, and it exposed the challenges that are out there that people have to face in order to get good food. And I know when COVID first started, it was sad seeing the stories of, farmers having to dump all their milk out or, all their crops because there's no drivers to get their food. So yeah, there's lots of food out there in America. We got to be very clear. Like in America, there's a lot of food, but it's just not getting to the people, and that problem's getting worse. And as we look at the idea of food deserts, where you get these cities that just have there's just no food around. I mean, they have to bring everything in. Like there's a whole bunch of people in those cities. I think what is it, 75% of the world's population is in a city. That's pretty ridiculous if you think about it. I mean, ridiculously sized. There's nothing wrong with people
Mhm.
living in the city, but um, although I prefer not to. I'm not like I love living out in the country because I can understand wild animals, but people are a little different. um,
So true. No, it's absolutely true.
so food deserts really were a big thing, and really food security, and so then from my science side of my brain, I started kicking in, and we always think, and I think what a lot of the mainstream kind of the like the United Nations and stuff is they like to show people this curve, like our population is growing exponentially, and what they fail to do is show the other curve, which is the logistics curve, which says that populations will only grow until the system can actually carry them, which is what this chart is showing. Is it's saying, hey, listen, you have only so many resources, and when those resources start running low, guess what? People start dying. So there's some things for us to watch out on, and I think it's there's so many politicized topics that are out there, and it seems like in today's world everything becomes politicized. But what if you really just look at it and you say, okay, I'm looking at this with my own critical thinking skills. What do I think is going on? And that's what I talked to myself about many years ago, which is, hey, you know what? We only have so many resources, and if we don't take care of them, if we don't get them to the right place at the right time, then it's no good. It's kind of like the water situation that we're starting to enter in, which back in the day here, when we first started, there was these types of articles back in 2017, and uh, these are only getting worse now as we're seeing this starting to happen. So I say this is like a good indication of what's going on. But what this little image is, it's the colors represent change of altitude. And so they used I think it was a radar, space-based radar, and they went through and they actually mapped the Earth. It might have been LIDAR, but they went through and mapped it. And what they discovered is, oh, hey, this place where there's a whole lot of growing going on, and people are pumping water out of the ground to support all the crops because of the big mega farms. Like, hey, you know what? Things are kind of falling down in the earth there, and that really got my attention. And so I did some more research, and I was finding out, there's lots of articles that were kind of repeating this, but then this is also happening across the globe. It's like half of the reservoirs, the underground reservoirs on the planet are, emptying. We're sucking more water out to grow food than we are putting it. Then the rain cycle is able to bring it back in. Because some people say, my goodness, there's lots of rain. Or if you look like in China right now, or in the Midwest, in the South, where we have flooding, and it's like, yeah, there's water there, but there's no water out here in the West. It's all drought. Like, I mean, I can't barely go outside. I hate to light a match because the whole thing will burn down.
Well, and
It,
I think it's important. I think it's important to note here too, like we're not trying to scare people. This isn't about the sky is falling. This isn't about the end is near. This is about change has to come. That's and when we talk about these articles, when we're giving everyone these data points, this isn't fear porn. This isn't designed to get you to go and hide or, not. This is to show that these problems are real. We have to confront them. The sooner we confront them, the better off we will be. And it's not
Exactly.
about and it's not about the rest of the world. It's about you, the individual.
Yeah,
Like the
that's it.
time that we're living in, it requires individual responsibility and individual change. If we're going to live in a future that's worth living in, if we're going to live in a future that we're not all controlled by Walmart, Facebook, Twitter, and Amazon, controlling everything that we can buy, everything that we can see, everything that we can do, then it has to begin with the individual taking that power back. And that's always going to be my message. And that's always what I'm going to bring everything back around to, and try to make the audience, in our best way, communicate that message to the audience. So I wanted to throw that in there, that when we're giving you this information, it isn't about that this is the end, this is the beginning.
Yeah, our systems are created to help address these problems. And, when there are problems, there's opportunity. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They look ahead, they take risk, they analyze things, they use their own God-given talents and brains, and they think of things and then they identify potential solutions, which is what we've done here. So, kind of just giving everybody the backstory, as we look at what's happening in California right now today, if you fast forward and you see some of the drought stuff, what many people may not know is that uh, even though I'm not a huge fan of California, as far as their politics go, they do have a lot of great people down there, and a lot of those people spend a lot of time in the fields growing our food. 1/3 of our vegetables in America come from California. Did you know that? I didn't. I didn't.
No,
I
that's
did not
unbelievable.
know
I had
that.
no idea I didn't know the concentration was that high.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense because so much of the Midwest is just corn and soybeans and stuff like that. So I guess a lot of the variety comes out of the West Coast.
Yeah, and 2/3 of our fruits and our nuts. And I guess the almond trees actually are sucking up a lot of water, so that's like a really big deal right now. But yeah, there's a lot going on. So when we look at the things that are happening in the world, uh, I think the people that have farms, that have land that can grow food, they should be growing food right now. If you're not, kind of shame on you. I think everybody out there who's had any YouTube channel who deals with these types of topics or living on a homestead like what Alicia and I do, everybody is saying the same thing. Start growing your own food. Get your own food in the ground. Get used to growing it again. It's very important. So if you have land and you haven't started getting a garden in, start on it now. It's never too late. So make that happen. Even if you just, I mean, it's kind of late if the season's too late, but you'll still learn stuff. Get the fence in, figure out your pests, get all those things going. But you know what, Bart? Not everybody lives in the country, and not everybody can afford to live in the country. So a lot of people, like I said, 75% of the population lives in cities. So what are they going to do? They all going to, just leave? Well, the people, I think what we're seeing is exactly what people who have resources would do. They are leaving the city. Idaho, Oregon, Washington, rural Texas. People are leaving the cities by the droves and they're moving to the rural areas because that's safety, that's ability to grow your own food. There's wells out there for water. It's a higher quality of life, more space for your kids. There's so many benefits, and they're getting out of the city, but not everybody can afford that. So what are they going to do? We're just going to say goodbye to them, and like there's millions of people that need food in the cities, in these food deserts, and our systems, that's what we're going after. So we start looking back at like the droughts, like yeah, reports of people opening dams and letting them all drain because of the fish and all that, or hey, there's just not water, or whatever it is. The bottom line is the amount of water that we have available is less than it should be. And the way of doing farming, the way that it's evolved, has gotten us here. But quite frankly, it needs to change if we're going to keep moving forward under these types of conditions. And that's what led me to a lot of the research and stuff that I was doing. Is we gotta do something that has a lot more efficiency in it. And then kind of look and we see food all over these are today's headlines. This is right now. 3 hours ago or 3 days ago, excuse me, I still don't get this Taco Bell is facing a food shortage. I mean, that's not like the end of the, maybe it is the end of the world, Bart. Taco Bell
Well,
has no food.
it's the end of the world for some people, but it's just indicative of the things that are going on now. And these events are only going to accelerate, and they're only going to continue to happen. You know, already they're talking now about the Delta variant, and there's parts of the country that are going back into lockdown. There's more supply chain disruptions. You know, the United States is printing money like it's going out of style. There's already inflation is happening. So, I mean, again, it's not about being negative. It's just about seeing the reality of the land in
Yeah,
front of
being
us, seeing
real.
the lay of the land, and being intelligent and taking proactive steps to maintain your family's future, their standard of living, their security in unsure times. And that's, you know, that's everything that led us to it. And I mean, I remember when we first were designing the first life pod, and I turned to one of the original founders and I said, you know, we got to sell these things and we got to get a movement out to the people, because it doesn't matter if you and I have a system. It doesn't matter if just Jeff Raymond and, you know, Bart Womack are okay, because that'd be easy for us to do. You could have stayed working for Boeing. I could be doing real estate right now. We could be taking all of our resources and building out the infrastructure of our homes and our homesteads, which we have done. But we went for a greater vision and a wider vision, which was, if we're going to end up living in the kind of future that we want to live in, it's not just about the security of our families, it's about the security of all families everywhere. You know, and that's one of the reasons that we're also always trying to engage your audience and everyone we talk to about, whether it's with us or someone else, you need to be a part of the movement. If sure, it doesn't matter what end of the political spectrum you're on, what you believe in. You want to create more equality, you want to create more equity, you want to create more prosperity, you want to create more security. Any one of those things I just touched on. The power of food, the power of the individual to grow and create their own food is what will increase any and all of those things simultaneously.
Yeah. I see that we might be having some connection issue here. So if people are experiencing a bad connection, we apologize. It's just a matter of our connection here, but looks like everything's been going pretty good up until this point. Just a few more topics here. We're getting close. One of the things I saw this recently, I think you've probably seen this part, right? The whole, uh, I can't believe this thing still when I see it though. You'll own nothing and be happy. Have you seen that?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny you should bring it up, Jeff. I was literally talking about this at lunch today with Blaine and one of our investors, and I said, you know, the supreme arrogance of anyone, but especially, you know, someone at the height of the financial system that writes, you know, books from Davos, saying something like that is the most absurd and arrogant thing to ever tell the human population. The idea that that anyone would think that they have the right to tell the rest of humanity, you will own nothing and you will be happy about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And it's like these are the kind of things that you would think you would hear from Benito Mussolini,
Yeah.
um, you know, or Stalin. You know,
Yeah,
really,
it's really
Stalin
scary.
was, you know, you will, I mean, doesn't that sound like a quote Stalin would say? You will
Yeah.
own nothing and you will be happy about, I mean, it's the most communistic USSR, you know, authoritarian arrogance to tell people they don't have the right to own anything and they're going to be happy about it. I mean, you know, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that makes me think it's pitchfork and torch time, even though I'm a complete nonviolent pacifist myself. I mean, it's just, it evokes the most, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's really the only word I can use for it. That phrase, the ideas behind it, and the arrogance of the people that are pushing it is the most morally disgusting. And I want to say the word disgusting. I mean, it is philosophical garbage. It's, and you know what it really is, Jeff? It's neo feudalism. It really is neo feudalism. It is the return of a feudal identity that instead of royal houses, you have a royal international corporatocracy that
Yeah.
gets to determine how you live, what you own, and you know, and the fact is, the very people, the financial class that has mismanaged the wealth of the planet and has used their, we'll say, mismanagement, and have capitalized off that mismanagement, have been able to seize property and take inflated money and buy up everything, is unbelievable. The fact that we're in this situation and they feel empowered and arrogant enough to say something like that to us.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing the trend. With To me, this is just a kind of a tipping point of a clear trend. And even before the WEF came out and said these utterly crazy things, we were seeing, well, this is another article supporting that, but we're seeing the large companies really start to take indoor growing and use it for their benefit and not really for the individuals. What we're seeing, in my opinion, is the corporate America or corporate entities, period. It's not just America, I shouldn't say that. This has no boundaries really in this approach that people are taking here is they're trying to control the entire vertical, of your food. And Kroger is another one. Kroger owns quite a few chains within their brand name, but they want to control it from seed all the way up to you buying it and eating it, and what you do to take care of it. And we're not just seeing that in the vegetable space; we're seeing it, in the meat space as well. Bill Gates owning, being the largest farmer, quote, I use air quotes on that, farmer. He's not farming. Uh, you know, in America, like, why is that? Well,
It's because, well, no, it's because they've looked at the same trends you and I have looked at, and they know that positioning themselves in farming is the future. Because whoever can, whoever can respond to this crisis, this ongoing crisis of food, is going to be one of the major controllers of the planet. So, they're just positioning themselves to create those greater economies of scale and greater vertical integration so that they can be the solution to the breakdown. And, we're on the complete opposite end of that.
exactly,
We're
exactly.
trying to flip that completely on its head and say, no, you're not going to consolidate. We're going to decentralize, and we're going to send it out to the people and empower the people. And in my analysis, this is actually even what led to my first realization about food and everything else. The entire story of the future, the rest of yours and my life, is going to be the story of the attempt of consolidation and vertical integration by large power structures reacting to societal disruptions. Every time a COVID hits, every time a hurricane hits, every time there's a cyber attack, and they've promised you, your leadership has told you these things are going to happen. If you go and read Homeland Security, British Ministry of Defense, Pentagon Papers, they're all talking about that the instance rates of these kind of events are going to continue to not only escalate in severity, but become shorter and shorter over time. The corporations that own the planet, their only solution is going to be to give them more power and for them to consolidate more resources. So the only way that we can get out of this and not live in that kind of consolidated future is by integrating technologies like this into our lives and creating the decentralized networks that can then respond to these crises without crumbling.
Yeah, so I think everyone can see that Bart and I have two very different personalities. I'm very much, uh, I'm not as emotional as Bart. I mean that in a respectful way. And But together we really balance each other out. I think it's been a nice thing that God has done, bringing the two different personalities together. But we do think the same things and share the same morals and beliefs. So it's been cool seeing the different attitudes, different way of seeing and looking at things come out. Uh, we kind of at our time here. We're going to be wrapping this up. We'd love to get people's feedback on how things are going, topics you like us to talk about. We'd like to be sharing what we're doing, but also engaging you. Bart's hit on it a few times, but when what we're trying to do at Eden, and it's on our website. If you go to our website, edengrowsystems.com, we've been updating it. We love to get feedback, from everybody here on the Real Martian. Go check out the website, see what you think. But down here in the bottom, you can really see, what we are. And what we are is a company that is trying to provide sustainable food and energy independence to local communities and families around the world and one day off of it. So when Bart and I sat down and we came together and we started talking, and we spent, I don't know, geez, spent a few days talking to each other about the company and how we wanted to structure it, writing it all down. But the mission, we spent quite a few hours on, a
We spent a
single
whole day.
sentence. Yeah,
We spent a
yeah, it
whole
was a
day.
lot. It was a lot, and every word there really means something to us. Our solutions are sustainable. The way that large farms in particular are going right now, whether it be from their water usage, their land usage, their labor usage, or their pesticides, herbicides, and nutrient usage, it's just not sustainable. It's and and I'm not a greener, folks. I am not that liberal person who's like, oh my goodness, these things are all bad. I think everything kind of has its place, but quite honestly, if you look at the practices, they're just not sustainable. It just can't be maintained. It's like a house of cards. It's just getting too top heavy and it's eventually going to fall. Um, and we want to have a solution to sustainable. So we did the math up front. We looked at the energy. And that's where the space side really helped us out, is because when you take a system and you put it out in outer space, it's got to have its own energy. All the waste has to be taken care of, oxygen, CO2, everything has to come from somewhere and then be regenerated. And when we did that exercise, the real Martian exercise, I guess you could call it, that really allowed us to figure out a whole lot of things that normally you would not try to figure out, because why worry about water usage when you have a whole bunch of it, in a lake or a river right next to you? You just don't worry about those things. So dump it on the crop. But for our systems and what we're doing, and the tower being the first product, ours are extremely efficient, and the equations all balance out. So you end up making money in the long run. Um, so we're really excited about that. And then, it's not just about the food, because to use this type of technology, you do need energy. And the Genesis system that we designed has the energy part of it in it as well, including the anaerobic digester to help create methane to use as a tertiary source of power generation. And we're actually going to be putting a digester into one of these towers. And essentially, the tower is turning into like a small hab. It's like we have the stationary system, which is the Hab. We have the mobile system, which is LifePod, and now we have this like in your garage, micro habitat thing that we've put together. And they're all super efficient and they're sustainable and they're going to be producing energy. And we're actually looking at solar panels, kits and stuff that we can use to help run these things, so you don't have to rewire your whole home or anything like that. Uh, and then the key thing that we really focused on during our conversation about the mission statement is independence. We do not want to control your ability to grow food. We want to give you a tool, no different than a rototiller, a refrigerator, uh, a backhoe, or a shovel. We're giving you a tool and you have to use it. And how you want to use it, if you want to use the shovel to bash in a nail, go for it. And that's kind of our towers, is we're going to give you a system that will grow food, and we're going to give you an app that teaches you how to grow food with that system, so it's a lot easier to do than traditional farming, like 75% less labor. That's huge. That's a big deal. And our systems, unlike our competitors, they can grow root vegetables. Like nobody else can do that. So we're really excited to be getting this thing out there. And I personally, I wish we could get it out there sooner. Like I really wish we could have had it out already, in fact. But God has a plan, and everything's happening the way it's supposed to. And I think being able to start sharing things on YouTube again and being able to get these towers out there, we're going to get some great feedback, and it's just going to get better. It's going to get better and better and better, and we are going to get these systems figured out. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be sharing this with Bart, sharing it with all of you guys, and I'm really grateful to even just be able to be here. So that's pretty awesome. Bart, do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share with everybody? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, am I talking to myself? No, I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to everybody on YouTube and myself. Looks like we may have lost Bart here. Let's see here. Are you there, Bart? What happened? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, you guys are getting a nice still image there of Bart. So, well, I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Really appreciate everybody following along. We'll get better at these things. We'll work on it, and we'll go from there. So, be sure to check us out on Facebook, on Twitter. Real Martians on Patreon there. But if you could go over to the Real Martian, or excuse me, definitely go over to the Real Martian and subscribe. But go over to eatinggrowsystems.com and check that out. Let us know what you think. What would be better? What would you like to see on the website? What's not there? What's not clear? We're working on this, folks. We're partnering up with a company, and they're going to help us get this website really all dialed in. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it, and if there's anything that you would like us to do differently to make it better. Yeah, definitely let me know, and sign up for the early adopter program. That would be cool. Sign up for the early adopter program. You can do that by going up here anywhere where it says sign up or pre-order. That'll take you to just a nice little form. You go on that form. Oh, that one will take you to there. This one says sign up. There you go. And you don't have to put any money down to start, just putting your application in here. But then we will collect a $200 payment there to get things going. So, hey, thanks again. Again, sorry for any rough spots here in the presentation. We're first time doing this. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked it. Hope you have a great day. God bless you all. This is the Real Martian. And I'm saying